All right. Now let's turn you off and start the show. Good morning. This is Martin Hubel, your ever-present host of the DB2 Night Show. This is show number Z138. We've done 138 shows for the DB2 community on System Z. That's rather a large and fantastic number. And today we have a special guest with us. Sowmya Kameswaran is back with us. How are you doing today, Sowmya?
Oh, doing well, Martin. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. We're always happy to have people from SVL come and tell us things. We absolutely love that. So with that in mind, let me get myself out of the way quickly here. I will go through and do the standard stuff we normally do, in case this is your very first show with us. To follow us on Twitter, we use the hashtag of DB2Night, and that's the best way to keep up on what shows are available. I also, when I finish posting the replay to YouTube, I also put a thing on Twitter as well to let you know that that replay is available on YouTube. You can also download the stuff from our replay blog. You can get the handout and a downloadable Windows media file or an MP4, your choice, and that's also available to you. And we'll have that available hopefully later today, depending on how fast I work this week. Disclaimers, as always, here's our famous bit of text. We record things, we respect people's copyrights, and if you participate, that'll show up in our replay as well. Certainly for answering or asking questions of Sowmya or anything regarding the show, we have our GoToWebinar question tool that allows you to put in your questions in writing, and then I will read them at a convenient point to Sowmya. So that should work out okay. Other quick announcements. We're down to one last show after this for before the summer comes along, and we have Callisto coming next week on June 23rd, and that'll be an update on the machine learning optimizer for DB2 LUW. We recently presented the the things on optimization with John Hornibrook, and it became apparent that people would like to hear more on that. So Callisto is going to come on the show and tell us about that. We're looking forward to hearing that. And then we'll be done for the summer. As always, DBI is the founding sponsor of the DB2 Night Show, and as such, we like to give them a brief plug for their tools. They have a bunch of DB2 LUW performance tools, and they also have those tools now for SQL Server, so you can go to DBI software and look into that at your convenience. Our winner from the last show is Perry Spada of Ericsson. Congratulations, you've won yourself an Amazon gift certificate and likely have that already in hand. And our sponsor of the show is DBI Software, as previously mentioned, and yours truly, Martin Hubel Consulting. Now we're into the polling section of our show, where we get to see if people or what people have been up to with various things. So our first question, as always, is what version of DB2Z are you running? And I put in production on that, and I always give people a number of choices here. Please pick the one that best. Oops, is that a launch button? Golly, it dressed me up. You just can't take me anywhere. So I'm sitting here waiting for responses before I click the button. Not that that's ever happened before. We got a version 13 there. That's awesome. All right, we've got most of our audience has voted, so we'll share the result there. Let's see, we've got those people on, everybody seems to be on version 12 today at least, and likely a few people on DB2 13. We'll hide that and move on to our next question, which is On Db2 LUW, this is interesting for DBI because they're a DBI vendor or an LUW vendor. Let's see how new people are there. It's a different type of morning around here. I didn't get the dogs around the block before the show, so they're a little more needy. That's a nice way to put it. We've got people voting on that. We'll share the result there. Everybody seems to be on Db2 11.5 if they're there, and there's always some that are on something a little older because likely they're running a package that is not yet certified for the newer releases of Db2. Now I shared that one. I just need to move on to the next one. When do you plan to move to Db2's? Oops, I buggered that up. I don't know if I can open that again. Probably can't. We're going to have to. I buggered that up. I had a dog yelping in my at my leg, so we don't have any results for that. I sincerely apologize. It won't happen again until the next time. Let's move along to the next question. Lacey, that's your fault. Just letting you know. What development tools are people using? And we'll close that off and share the result there. And we see that 44% are using Data Studio. Other people are using the other things we mentioned. And 4% are saying others or they don't know. Okay, with that in mind, that's our last poll for now. So I'll close that off. We should be seeing my screen again when I'll move forward. And Sowmya, it's your turn to take over.
Thank you, Martin. I'll wait to see the prompt.
Yep, there's the prompt.
Awesome.
And
Okay.
we're seeing your screen and we're seeing your smiling face.
Okay, so I just turned on the webcam for a bit.
Yeah.
Because we all have this where we find this one picture that suits, that looks good. We've already edited it. It's there everywhere, and but as time passes, we all look different. So I thought I'll show my face. So next time we meet, we get an opportunity.
Just great. You're
meet anywhere. You guys know, who was this person talking about that? That thing I really love. Okay, let's keep it. Okay, so I'll turn off my webcam only in the interest of bandwidth. I know many people do have bandwidth issues. So thank you all. For those of you who are joining us live today, thank you for being here. For those of you who are going to probably listen to this virtually at some point in time, again, thanks for the time. So let's get started. So Martin's had me in the past, and he's also had, we've discussed this topic over the last 2 or 3 years, right? And initially, it was it was my colleague Pat Bossman, who I believe did it in 2021, and then I did it last year, and I'm back here to share some updates on where we are with this whole transformation for Db2 for z/OS. Right, and this time I did add to the topic some Zoe synergy, because I want to address some aspects of it, how Zoe plays a role in this entire solution. So let me move into the presentation mode, and I'm going to. This is the usual stuff that you guys have seen many times. So what I have planned for today is to kind of do an overview or a review of the strategy and the transformation strategy. And then I'm going to do a lot more demos because we've got a lot more capabilities into the products at this time, a lot more coming up too. So I'm going to do less slides and more show and tell. And so we'll look at what DB2 admin foundation looks like today, the integration with SQL tuning and query workload tuner, the integration for with DB2 analytics accelerator. And so that's for the administration side. And for the application development, I will also be talking about the DB2 developer extension. Once again, more demos and showing off the capabilities that are already integrated and few of the updates from the roadmap. So let's get started. Since this is a review, but I am going to touch upon some of the key goals and visions as we progress through this transformation, user experience transformation. So when we think about, when I say user experience, most people associate it with a UI, right? But user experience is beyond a user interface. It is about how you work with something holistically. It covers multiple aspects of it, UI being one of them. And our goal getting into this about 3 years ago was really that we wanted to, I mean, we are all aware that there is a dearth of skills, deep Z skills out there. And even, whether it's from IBM, our business partners, vendors, customers, everyone sees this. And the goal was to really make it easy for both application developers and administrators to do whatever they want to do with DB2 for COS easily without too much of Z domain specific skills. And although we are, there is a dearth of talent, the Z hardware and all the software middleware that's built on top of Z is only becoming more and more capable. And Z is, of course, still one of the best platforms out there for your performance, reliability, scalability, all those nice characteristics. And with that, we also wanted to make sure we are able to reduce the cost, and the cost in terms of it, not just in terms of CPU intensive, but also cost in terms of a lot of different things, including, personnel, all of that put together, right? So reduce the overall cost to administer, tune, develop, and debug applications for DB2 for Z. And with that, make sure that we are able to speed up the application development process, build or rebuild, re-architect some of our backend tools. And I'm not specifically talking about all the tools in the DB2 for ZOS space, but tools that users, which is the one not that question, but tools that our users are using to interact with DB2 for ZOS, like the Data Studio, like DSM. And we wanted to make sure that all of these tools are able to consistently work with an API-enabled backend. And what the API enabling has actually given us is a lot of flexibility in what we want to build, what we want to stitch together to build a certain solution or a use case or a workflow. And also in the current world, where a lot of companies are actually putting together their, or already have their DevOps cloud strategy, the API enablement of the key capabilities for working with DB2, both administration and application development, was key. So that was that, and we've been working on that, and I think we've done a pretty good job to API enable a lot of capabilities. And I think the web-enabled it just has to be done. And one of the bigger, since we are part Db2 for ZOS is in a unique space, right? We are part of core data management strategy for most companies that host their data on Db2Z, but we are also part of the overall ZOS ecosystem as well. And ZOS ecosystem itself has been undergoing a lot of transformation in many different aspects over the last few years, 5 years plus. And we wanted to make sure that whatever we build out for Db2 fits into the System Z transformation strategy as well, whether it comes to the DevOps strategy or the cloud native development strategy, whatever it is, we wanted to make sure that we fit in natively into that ecosystem. So these are some of the key objectives or vision we set for ourselves when we started this project out 3 years ago. And the key user personas that we've been working with are a Db2 for ZOS developer. It says new because that was, a new developer is our primary target persona. But whatever we are building, we want to make sure that it is easy to use and workable for both the new application developer and DBA, as well as someone who's experienced and been doing this for a long time. The release engineer is a newer persona that most of the some Z teams have added. Some still are working through their strategy and how they want to do this, build the DevOps strategy. But the release engineer is the person who is responsible for the DevOps schema changes, making sure that the changes that are being made to the applications DDL specifically are able to be automated and automate both development and deployment. So we won't cover too much of that personas, the support tools and all that for the release engineer persona today, but that is also part of the overall transformation vision. And for the so we talked about two key pillars, right? One is the application development and the other being the administration. So from an overall architecture perspective, I did mention it's API enablement. So we have re-architected a lot of the backend or business logic into REST APIs and microservices where applicable. And the goal is to be able to bring Db2 to you, which essentially means our goal is to build whatever it takes to make it easy to work with Db2 for ZOS. So for an application developer, the strategic tool set that we've been working on is based on Microsoft Visual Studio Code. And it is the IBM Db2 for ZOS developer extension. And I'll cover the developer extension in the second half, where we can look at what the product looks like, the roadmap, and all of those fun things. The nice thing about building for Microsoft VS Code is that the VS Code architecture is built in such a way that it lends itself easily for us to integrate what we've built for VS Code into other platforms like the Eclipse Thea, which is the cloud-enabled version of Eclipse. You can access it through the browser without having to install anything on your workstation, or Eclipse Che. And also VS Code itself supports multiple forms of deployment where you can actually separate out the language server pieces of VS Code onto a central server. And the clients are pretty much just I won't call them dummy, but stubbed versions. So much more lightweight, which can be deployed to the user's workstations. And so there are a few ways to work with, but overall, when we did the survey and started this out, we figured that Microsoft VS Code is the most preferred IDE in the market by application developers, irrespective of the platform and language people used to develop with. So that's why we started out with putting it on VS Code, because as part of bringing Db2 to you, we want, rather than telling users, oh, okay, here is this new platform that we've built out that you've got to adapt to work with Db2, we wanted to figure out what do people already prefer, and we wanted to bring the capabilities to them and make it easy for them to work with their preferred platform. So that's about VS Code and the developer extension. And for the administration, we built IBM Db2 Administration Foundation for ZOS to surface the foundational administrative capabilities. And the way, once again, the way the system is architected is it is going to serve as an integration point for multiple add-on capabilities driven by that are just Db2 administration specific or foundational, but also integration from other tooling where it makes sense to build a certain use case and keep it as transparent to the end user as we transition between the various capabilities offered by different tools that are part of a use case or a workflow that the end user wants to achieve. So, and that is built on top of the Zoe stack, on top of Zoe, and I will talk about that in just a minute. And the last part, which is the continuous integration, continuous deployment, we have a product, IBM Db2 DevOps Experience for ZOS for database as a service capabilities. And there's been a lot of improvements that have been made to this product, but once again, everything is API enabled, which means users will be able to drive these and automate as much as the CI/CD related activities as possible without having to use the user interface. So this is the overall architecture. So we have three parts here. Let's start with the rightmost, which is the administration stack, right? The administration stack, I just mentioned Db2 Administration Foundation is built on top of Zoe. And I have some of those versions in there just to kind of say that, okay, Zoe 2.3 is the minimum supported version for Administration Foundation version 1.2, which is the latest version out there. And Unified Management Server, which you see in between the Zoe and Admin Foundation, UMS is the API mediation layer, if you may, right? So Zoe has its own API mediation layer, which and Zoe's done a fantastic job with what in the path of what it's trying to get to achieve. Zoe has API enabled a lot of COS native capabilities. So you have, the ones I use a lot are the ability to look at browse through files in your MVS, browse through and even submit jobs that are sitting in data sets, your ZOS data sets. Browse through files in your Unix system services. And I will show a little bit of this when we go to the developer extension. And also review the status of your jobs. I think these are some of the things that I use very frequently, but there is a lot more capability for native ZOS that Zoe has API enabled. Unified Management Server sits on top of Zoe, and it is the middle API mediation layer that has also API enabled a lot of DB2 and IMS specific capabilities. And so you see two parts. There is a DB2 administration foundation that's built on top of UMS, or Unified Management Server. And there is also an IMS administration foundation, which helps users that use both DB2 and IMS manage their systems from the same interface, same product stack. And the DB2 DevOps experience, which we briefly talked about, is also built on top of the same stack. And we are expecting a lot more integrations to come in to build out solutions. And now transitioning, and there has been a lot of questions and confusions about how this whole thing works. And trust me, we are working as our top priority. The development teams are working on figuring out all possible ways to simplify the rollout of this entire stack, right? And this is all installed on ZOS itself. Most of them are Unix system services installable, but there are pieces like security and user configurations that have to be done on the MVS side. But otherwise, it's an entirely Z-based solution, which was one of the most common feedbacks that we received from users, especially when DSM came out, right? Because DSM did not support a native Z install, and a lot of users had, purely ZOS users had issues where they had to acquire distributed servers for this purpose in their enterprise, and it wasn't that easy for them. So one of the things that we commonly heard about is, I want everything on Z because that's where I can control stuff. So this entire solution is built on Z, and moving on to this integrated offerings, or the middle layer that you see here. You see two parts. One is the DB2 Analytics Accelerator services and the SQL tuning services. So when we say services, as part of the API enablement, one of the things we did was to take all the backend capabilities that supported SQL tuning on both Data Studio as well as DSM, and also IDA administration on Data Studio as well as DSM. And we rewrote them or re-architected them to be APIs. And what that means is these services itself are just the backend APIs. The UI surfaces either through the administration foundation or through the developer extension. And so the DB2 Analytics Accelerator services is actually a part of the DB2 Analytics Accelerator engine itself. And the SQL tuning 2.1 is actually, it ships with the DB2 Accessory Suite Database Services Expansion Pack. I have the FMIDs for wherever we have, whichever products have FMIDs, I listed them in the last chart. And so this is a shop Z install for SQL tuning, and for those users who may already have DB2 Query Workload Tuner, which is a licensed product, we have a new version 6.1, and it's completely API enabled. And most of these, the UI, the integrations to consume these services and build out the user experience for the end user, especially for the workload related tuning, is all going into administration foundation. The single query tuning, which is something that we know that application developers can make use of as part of their application development workflow, where they write an application which contains one or more queries, and before they proceed with pushing the application to the next level, like maybe they check it into GitHub for someone else to review, the integration of the single query tuning capabilities with the developer extension, where we anticipate developers spend most of their time, is going to help speed up the development process, because you're putting some of that tuning capabilities in the hands of the developers. That way they can actually run through some basic tuning and figure out if the SQL that they have written is up to the standard before they proceed with checking in. And that way this this helps ease out some of those back and forth communications where they'll have to iterate through the SQL multiple times. That leads that into our IDE tooling, which is the developer extension built on top of VS Code. And the IDE tooling is going to support all the capabilities that application developers would need to work with Db2 for ZOS. So this is, maybe just before we switch to the demo, we did announce Data Server Manager and Data Studio both supported both flavors of Db2. And the Data Server Manager for Db2 LUW is already out of support and replaced with Data Management Console. And for ZOS, we did announce an end of support effective March 2024. So that's first quarter of next year. And from a migration readiness to sunset Data Server Manager in lieu of Db2 Administration Foundation. Db2 Administration Foundation already has all the basic administration capabilities, full support for Db2 Analytics Accelerator administration, and new functions as IDAA engine itself adds. We'll work on getting it in there. For Query Workload Tuner, which is also part of DSM, we are about 70% integrated into from a services from the backend, the API perspective, as well as from the admin foundation perspective. We are about 70% there. And as new versions of admin foundation go out, we are constantly adding new capabilities for query workload tuning. And this is, I'll leave it in the charts, but I will talk about some of these features as we do the demo. And so I'm going to exit out of presentation mode and switch to here. So before we actually look at admin foundation itself, let me show you what I was talking about when it came to the APIs. So this, for instance, is the Swagger is. Think of Swagger just like it is an interface of some sort that displays all of the APIs that are API contracts that are provided by the SQL tuning services. And here you can see these are all APIs. So what Swagger lets you do is look at an API and see, okay, what do I pass in? And it also lets you try it out, right? So you can look at it and say, okay, this is the input, this is the successful output that I'm looking at, but in case of error, it's going to look like this. So it kind of gives you a contract of what to expect with that API. And so this is that for SQL tuning services. In my case, I do have the Query Workload Tuner license enabled as well. So you see, all these workload advisors and all of this in there too. And this is the same for Db2 Analytics Accelerator. So you can see the monitoring, all the table related activities, Accelerator itself, info and all of that, traces, queries. So all of these are the APIs that the users, the users can directly invoke in case of pipeline-like integrations, or they can use the same capabilities through Admin Foundation, which invokes the same set of APIs, right? So there is consistency no matter whether you're using it through Admin Foundation or whether you're invoking something through a pipeline. There will be full consistency. And this is the same, the API contracts provided by Db2 Admin Foundation itself, which is basically foundational capabilities that are part of UMS. And so here you can, even capabilities like being able to fetch the DDL for a single object. All of this is all API enabled. The way we architected the product is the UI is sort of a dummy layer, and all the key logic is driven by the APIs, and the UI is just a reflection of that. We don't do much of return type manipulations in the UI except for displaying things. So, and we made it that way so that the API is the single source of truth, and for consistency. So these are the same. And now switching back to the user interface itself. So those APIs are driven by the user interface. So I am inside the Zoe desktop, which is, so Zoe has a few. I think Zoe has a few parts. There's a CLI, there is a Zoe desktop, there is a Zoe API mediation layer, and the UI is all built through the Zoe desktop, and all the APIs go through the API mediation layer. And Zoe CLI, of course, is you can do all of the functions to work with Db2 using the Zoe CLI as well. So here I'm going to launch into this IBM Unified Experience for ZOS, which is where all the administration foundation for Db2 for IMS and all the future integrations is all going to be in this user interface. So let me, and you've probably seen multiple demos of this in the past. So I'm going to just do a quick overview because I do want to keep some time for the developer extension. And so here, this is the explore objects is where you would go to look at details of an object. So for instance, as part of that, let me pick IDA, right? I'm going to say, show me all the accelerators that are paired to this, paired to any of these Db2 subsystems that I have registered on the platform. And so here it shows to both of them are paired to this DB0C subsystem. So I'm going to pick one of them. So what is happening behind the scenes is when we clicked on that UI button, the call goes to UMS. UMS is actually talking to the IBM Db2 Analytics Accelerator Services, which we saw as one of the middle layer, one of the boxes in the middle layer in the architecture. And that in turn talks to Db2, does the magic, gets the responses back, and puts it. So this response is, say, getting information about this accelerator that's paired to the subsystem. So it pulls out, it provides an overview dashboard where you can see basic information about what's going on with the accelerator, the status, all of that. And the table dashboard is where you would go to manage the accelerated tables. So from here, you'll be able to look at all the tables that are in the accelerator already. You can add new tables from Db2 into the accelerator, load the data, anything that you typically do with your tables for acceleration. And queries. We did change this, the way Data Studio does that. We did change a little bit of it and brought out the filters up front so that all users don't have to wait until the first refresh of pulling all the queries happen before you filter. That's the way it is in Data Studio today. And we heard from a few customers that, especially those that have very large workloads and constantly use IDA, that it's a pain for them. It takes a performance hit when we try to, pull 5,000 plus queries to start with. So we put out the filters up front, set some defaults to say, get me all the queries for all the queries that I ran in the last 24 hours. And so when I do this, I'm likely not going to get anything. So I'll just change this. I didn't run anything. So here you see all the queries, and then I can click on each of those queries to look at the full query, do the explain, look at the explain details, which is textual, and this is visual, capturing query environment, canceling the query that's just in running status, and a few more capabilities are upcoming for that with the current release. The actions like being able to manage your replication status, acceleration status, encryption, looking at all the replication events, traces, all of this is moved to a common top menu, so that wherever you are, you can launch into these common capabilities to look at, change your trace levels, run through functions, save the trace, send it over to IBM. All of that can be done no matter in which tab you are in. So this is the support for Analytics Accelerator Administration. And this is the same, again, for those of you using IDAA, the monitor shows all the capabilities. Monitor shows the system monitoring information, system utilization, data slices, all the current tasks, finished tasks, and if replication is enabled, then incremental updates. This one will be populated as well. Going back, I can, say, let me just choose another object, and let me pick. I like the one. I like sys, one of those catalog tables. Oh, of course, nothing shows up if I mistype it. What did I do? Oh, geez, sorry. Can't type. Okay, so here we go. So I'll pick this one. I just wanted to show the relationships, and the catalog tables have better relationships. So here, well, I know that probably sounded funny, but by relationships I mean primary key, foreign key relationships. So here I can see the overview of overall structure of the object. You can see the columns and indices. Generate the DDL for the object, which you can, of course, copy and run in the SQL processor if you intend to create a similar object in another subsystem or modify the same for other reasons. So the relationship gives you where does this object sit in the hierarchy of the subsystem, and also all the referential integrity relationships, or how they relate to each other, right? So it lists, okay, for this table, all the children, which tables are related as children, as parents, and as siblings. So it gives you these, and then the status if there are any claims and logs on this table, and the last one being the data, right? So we do we do only pull a certain number of, so you can go change the display from 10 to 50. And if you say 50, we only go and pull like the first 50, and then we keep pulling the next 50. So we don't go all at once to DB2 to tell me get like 3 million rows of data and display it here. So we've optimized a lot of that based on what the UI would need. So this is for the Explore objects, the Explore SQL. It's part of the tuning workflow, but say you have statements that are in the statement cache, or from an application that's already bound to a plan or package, or sitting in an input file or other stabilized SQL, then using the capabilities provided by the SQL tuning service, the APIs are coming from there, you can gather. So say I do this and I say, dump me all the statements in the statement cache. I know I don't have, oh, okay. Let me pick another profile. I know what that error is. Okay, so I don't have that many, so I can do this, but there are a lot of filters to filter out exactly what you're looking for from the statement cache, and say, show me only the statements that are taking more than 5 seconds to execute, or you have filters like that to control what you capture. And from the list of statements that capture, there are a few actions that you can do. One is you can view the query, you can tune it, capturing query environment, you can create a workload, and the workload are all licensed features, but just capturing from the statement cache is not. You can add the statement to workload in case this is a stabilized statement. We can see an as Y here. You can also free stabilized. So Admin Foundation is probably the first interface where you are able to, we were able to exploit. Actually, this capability was dynamic plan stability was introduced with version 12, but DSM and Data Studio didn't exploit any version 12 capabilities. So you can, you can look at all the, you can free the stabilized, and especially the workload related integrations are coming up. So let me switch to, so this is for the statement capture from different sources and explore workloads. So this is where you can select a certain connection, Db2 connection profile, and you can look at all the workloads. So you can see, so let's say test one is all in captured, in explained status. So from here, I can select one or more, I can't select one or more. But from the workload manager, I can launch into tuning for the entire workload. And if I do that, you can see the options that it provides. The version that's installed on my LPAR is the GA version. So the prior GA version, we are preparing for another version to GA end of this month. And at that time, I told Martin that I would pick up the slot in June. I was hoping we would be able to have that version out before, but nevertheless, that's coming up just a couple of weeks away. And we have access path and query rewrite advisor integrated. What's coming up is the stats advisor, index advisor, and I think there's one more advisor that's coming in this release, and there'll be a couple more in the follow-up release to wrap up. So here, this is for the tuning in the run. This is the place you would come into to run your SQL statements. And I'll show this in the roadmap, but right now we can support, so I can do, say, a select star from sys IBM sys tables, right? I can run it, look at the results. I can run multiple statements and see the result set for all of them at once. At the GA level that's out there today, the capability to run statements with parameter markers or export the result set to CSV, and the ability to call stored procedures is not. But the upcoming version, end of this month, is going to have those capabilities. So that's I'm looking forward to that too, because I know that there are a lot of users who do use SQL statements with parameter markers. So that's coming up. This is where you would go to look at the tuning jobs, and this is for all the capture query environment jobs. I'm sorry, I'm not launching into a tuning, but what I can do is let me just pick up one of these outputs. Not a great one. I'll pick up let me pick up a visual explain. So I can, any jobs that I submit as part of tuning, I can come back at any point in time to look at the results. So this is for visual explain, and I can look at the results, evaluate them, and if needed, I can do a capture query environment at any point in time. So this is that, and the manage subsystems is where the person who sets it up, I think the person who sets up Admin Foundation is the person who might probably visit this page often. And well, you don't have to visit it often, but this is the place where you can go to see the status of the registered DB2s. So the nice thing with Admin Foundation is when UMS is installed installed in a subsystem, right? What happens is, actually, I shouldn't say subsystem. When Unified Management Server, or UMS, we bring it up on an LPAR. And one installation of Zoe and UMS can support multiple LPARs in a sysplex, right? That's the setup I have now. So we have a Plex that has 2 LPARs, and both running DB2s in data sharing. And we have one, we have multiple installs because we use one for sort of dev and the other one as production. I'm using the production version of Zoe and UMS. But you can see that it's able to pick up both the DB2s that are running on, running on separate LPARs, or have members running on different LPARs. So, and when UMS comes up, it automatically goes and registers discovers all your DB2 subsystems, and it puts it under the discovered tab, IMS2. So it discovers your DB2 and IMS within the sysplex, and it puts it in the discovered. The admin who's responsible for installation and configuration of UMS can then launch this and go in there and look at all the DB2s and say, well, this instance is going to support these 3 DB2s that were discovered. And they can then register the DB2 and work with, and once you register the DB2, then it gets ready for prime time or ready to start working with. So, again, once you register it, what we do is to keep the performance optimal. We actually go to DB2. We discover the information about the catalog, all the object relationships and everything, and we put it into graph database, so that when the user clicks on, I want to look at this table, I want to run this DB2 command, whatever it is, it's much quicker and more performant to use it from the interface. So this is most of the capability that is already supported in Admin Foundation as part of the foundational DB2 stuff, so which you can compare with the existing support functionality from DSM or from Data Studio, right? So, and picking primarily the DBA aspects of Data Studio. So I'm going to switch to the developer extension. So kind of switch the mindset from going from a DBA centric tool to a more application development centric tool. So I have my Visual Studio Code open here, and this is the DB2 developer extension. For those of you who are used to VS Code, you already know this, but VS Code is really easy to get up and running. And when I say that, I'm not joking. I was able to get VS Code on a brand new system set up, functional, and get the developer extension installed all in less than a couple of minutes, right? And that's a statement, right? It's really simple to get up and running with VS Code. So if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. You can go to the extensions or extensions marketplace, and here, if you do DB2 for ZOS developer extension, this is the one that our DB2 development team has been putting out to support application development. And so you can, there's a lot of this, and I think this is one of the poster childs for the best documentation available. And I'm quite proud of the team, my team that has done this. You have amazing documentation on how to use the various capabilities and how to do things. There's a lot of built-in graphical, not just images but GIFs, which show you exactly how to work with the interface. But it's very simple, right? You really don't need it. You would be able to actually work with it naturally. So when you start out with the developer extension, you'll have all of these sections empty, right? So in my case, so I have a few of my DB2s connected here, and added here, and I'm connected to the same LPAR that I used with Admin Foundation. right? So from here, this is Db2 stuff, and these are all the catalog navigation pieces that are getting built in. Once again, I will, when we walk through the roadmap, I will talk a little bit more. So this is phase one, what's out there. For phase one of catalog navigation, we covered storage groups, databases, tables, and schemas, tables, indices, aliases, a few others are coming up for phase two, which is again set for end of June. And there will be a phase three that wraps up all the supported objects. And once again, just to reiterate, this is more application development centric, right? So what you can, here are some of the things that you can do. One of the biggest features that helps users transition from Data Studio is we already support the ability to develop, deploy, and debug native store procedures. So you have, I won't demonstrate it, but in the developer extension wiki, you will see GIFs that show that. So if you're interested, please take a look. And from here, and say as a developer, I have a workspace, right? I have a workspace where I'm either working with my Java code, my COBOL, or my just SQL statements. And as long as the developer extension is installed and I create or I open an SQL statement, let's pick this one. What happens is the extension auto detects the SQL, and you can, I can start typing stuff in there. It'll give me, snippets. It'll give me validation. So if I do say select, it'll tell me that, okay, I've typed something. I have a typo or something is incorrect. And from here, I can select one and I can say run this selected SQL, or I can just say run all. I don't have to select anything. And the extension already supports execution of SQL with variables or parameter markers, host variables or markers. And here, when I run this, what it'll do is it parse through and see which are the ones that need values, host variables, and it'll ask me for the values, prompt me for the values before executing. And earlier I mentioned that the same set of tuning services is consumed by both the developer extension as well as admin foundation. And here, if I switch back to the developer extension, I will be able to see some of that. So this is the one I'm connected to. So I can right click this and say show connection profiles. And you see the list that gets displayed here, right? This one, these ones. Remember, demo was the one I attempted to use, which failed with the message. Demo test is what I use for tuning. So it's the same set of profiles. And depending, I know I've talked to users who say, well, I won't let my application developers go off and create their own profiles, right? So it doesn't matter, right? They can create their own profiles if they're allowed to do that. And profiles are nothing but telling that I'm going to use Db2 with a certain set of credentials, right? And those set of credentials, depending on how the enterprise is set up, may or may not have privileges to do stuff for tuning, for instance. And so DBAs have told me that, well, I might create the profile with a certain, functional ID or something that has the right set of privileges to do the tuning, and then I want to share it. And yes, you can do that, right? And because it's all on one single API backend, whatever I do, either using the APIs directly or using admin foundation, or using extension will show up in all three places for people to work with. So this is one of the nice things about having a single API server that's referenced by multiple multiple tools or products that provide the user experience. And again, the tuning history, tuning history is more specific to what you've run from the extension. But yeah, so the point is to be able to allow application developers to tune their SQL before going further in the process, which simplifies or reduces the amount of back and forth time in application development. So this is some of the capabilities. Of course, I didn't do justice to showing everything. There's a lot more to it in terms of snippets and how easy it is for application developers to work with the extension. A lot more functions like IntelliSense, where when you start typing a query and you type, start prompting a schema or typing the first few words, it will show up all the schemas that are applicable and then show up all the tables that are applicable in that schema. And so all that intelligent editing capabilities are coming up. It's in our roadmap. So I think I probably touched upon few of this. And the other thing I mentioned, which is the Zoe Explorer, there is another extension for Visual Studio Code called the Zoe Explorer, from where I can browse through, I can connect to a ZOS system using either RSE or ZOSMF. And I can look at all my data sets and files on USS and all of that, and I can actually edit them and work with them, right? So for instance, this one that I have here is where I've installed my tuning services and my IDA services on UMS. So if I have, there is a config file that I would have to edit, for instance. So I can, once I unpack the file on USS, what I can do is, sorry, open the wrong one, but I can just come here, I can open the config file, edit it in an editor that supports and makes it a lot more easier to work with, right? So file is still sitting. If I save something, it's going to save to the file on my Unix system services. So this is pretty neat. I like this a lot. It helps, especially when it comes to installing and configuring Zoe and UMS, which is YAML based. This helps a lot because VS Code has very good support for YAML files when it comes to the spacing and all of that tabbing, which is extremely difficult to do in an OMBS editor. So yeah, this comes in very handy. This, once again, this is data sets, and I can open any one of them and I can, say submit this job straight from here. I can monitor the progress of my jobs in this section. So this is one other useful extension for VS Code that's that we've built out. That helps application developers, especially the ones who are new, who are not very familiar with MVS and USS and those commands to get there. It helps them continue to work and build applications on C. There is another one called the ZOS Open Editor, which is built by the same team or group of folks that are also responsible for IDZ. And what that does is allows you to edit files like Python files, right? So for instance, if I have, sorry, not Python, I was looking at it, COBOL, JCL, Rex, all of that. And here, say I open up a COBOL file, I think it's here. If I have the extension, the COBOL file it's highlighted. The keywords and the variables are all, you can see all of them. Once I uninstall this extension, the COBOL file is going to look just like, a gray text file, right? But so this extension helps with all of that. Of course, it has a lot more capability than what I am showing, but even for applications that still use COBOL and are built with Rex, you can still use VS Code as your editor to work with. So these are some of the things that I really like with VS Code and all the useful extensions. So the three I showed are from the Z team, Db2 team, but it's in general, there are a lot more extensions that make application development simpler. I know that was a lot. So, any questions, feel free to reach out. I know you cannot stop me, but feel free to reach out. So I'm just going to move to the roadmap to to show you so these are all things that we've already built out. We already support in Admin Foundation. The latest release, and I mentioned this during the demo, the latest release supports the ones marked in green. The release that's going to come out in June will support the ones marked in green, SQL with parameter markers, export to CSV, more workload tuning capabilities or advisors, and stored procedure execution from the editor. A lot more additional integrations are coming up. And in fact, there are going to be some in the upcoming release as well. But stay tuned. We do publish blogs after the release goes out end of June. And so this is what it is for Administration Foundation. And I only have it updated until the upcoming release. But like I said, a lot more tooling integrations and feat function rich capabilities are coming up. And the key focus is really on how do we simplify the install and configuration for Zoe and UMS to make it easy to roll out, right? That's on the top of our priority list. There is also what we call as a Z trial that's available for Admin Foundation. We are in the process of refreshing it with the latest releases. And you'll probably see the refresh happen sometime in July. And you can go to this link anytime, sign up and get yourself a Z trial environment. It's basically a emulated Z environment where we've already installed everything, all the software stack, everything is installed. All you have to do is, there's even a wizard for you to follow through. You don't have to, but it has Admin Foundation. It has you can just go in there and kind of get a feel of the product for yourself. It's no charge, no installation. You can get it in as soon as 2 hours from the time you requested it. And it's available for 3 days after you receive it, including the weekends. So yeah, please feel free to try it if that's something that you're interested in. We will have a refresh very soon on that as well. For the application development, for developer extension, these are all the stuff marked in blue are the ones that we've already delivered. So you see phase 1 of catalog navigation. Phase 2 is going to support, is coming up. It's in progress. The team is wrapping up. It'll support indexes, views, plans, packages, and stored procedures as objects that you can now, click on and look into details and work with. The next phase would have aliases, sequences, table spaces, triggers, user-defined functions. Well, it's a lot. It's okay. I mean, once again, we will blog about all of this in the Db2 community. So stay tuned in to that. And we are also working on some of the integrations with WASI Code Ready Workspaces, which is basically Red Hat Code Ready Workspaces. And WASI is an initiative from the Z team that builds certain capabilities or bundles certain capabilities for Z-related development on Red Hat Code Ready. And like I said, IntelliSense and a lot more developer features are coming up, already planned for. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be it's going to be very usable. But if you do have certain capabilities that you use a lot and you didn't see in this presentation, either in the roadmap or during my quick demo, do reach out to me and let me know what you have in mind, and we can talk about it. So I have some of those product installation links or configuration links listed here for use. And I mentioned earlier that I have the FMIDs for all the products that are from ShopZ as part of the solution. So here you have Unified Management Server, Db2 Admin Foundation, and both of them are no charge products with no charge products. So you should be able to go there and order and get it, SMP install it. IBM SQL tuning services, again, is no charge, part of Accessory Suite. And Query Workload Tuner is the licensed part. So if you already have a license, you'll be entitled to use the latest version. If not, again, and if not, and you're interested in bringing some of these capabilities to your organization, and you want to discuss about what's there, again, reach out to me and we can talk about it offline. Okay, I think at least in my head, I think I covered most of the things that I wanted to today. So Martin, are there any questions in the chat?
There is one little question, but it came in some time ago. I hope I can read that. I hope it makes sense from the context of the question. Ashutosh asked, how is it different from the ZOS Connect Db2 API build process? I think I probably should have broken in with that, but I didn't see it until about 10 minutes ago.
No worries. So for the ZOS Connect, you can build APIs using ZOS Connect. However, these are the APIs that we are talking about, especially for tuning IDAA. These are not things that you can, that use the backend logic for most of them is all in products, right? You can, however, with using ZOS Connect, you can API enable a lot of things, like you can your SQL queries and things that run against Db2 can be. But these are products that were at one point integrated with Data Studio or DSM that have been API enabled. So these are actual products that are now accessible through APIs. So, and not Db2 queries, right? So, but if your question was something else and I didn't touch upon that, again, reach out and we can have a conversation about that. The ZOS Connect is part of, is built into the IBM developer for ZOS. It is IBM developer for ZOS is very well supported. It's going to, in fact, the IDZ team has been building out native Db2 for ZOS capabilities and ability to connect and tune and all of that within IDZ itself without the need for Data Studio. Data Studio, for those of you migrating to version 13, Data Studio does have a lot of issues working with version 13. It is in maintenance mode, so there's nothing but security updates are going into Data Studio very infrequently, and you can expect to hear a support statement for Data Studio from a Db2 for ZOS perspective sometime. We don't have it pinned on paper yet, but we are working towards how we want to handle it. So, but IDZ is very well supported, and IDZ is making a lot of updates, and you can continue to use your ZOS Connect and IDZ the way it is, and you can expect a lot more Db2 for ZOS capabilities to come into IDZ as well.
Great. Okay, let me take back control so we can.
Oh, thank you, Martin. And once again, thanks everyone for listening. That was a lot of information.
And what we're just, we have the last thing we need to do, of course, is to ask our final polling question, which is, did you learn anything today? And I'm sure people did, but we'll see what the audience says about that. And we're just let a few more people vote. And we're doing just fine there. Very good presentation, Sowmya. Thanks so much for being on the show and doing this for us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Martin.
And there we have it. 100% of the people that attended today and voted learned something. That's absolutely great.
Oh, thank you. Thanks to our fantastic audience.
Yes, they're a good-looking studio audience too. We can tell, can't we? But with that, let me cue the music. Let me thank you once again for a very informative show, Sowmya. And we will see you next week on the Db2 Night Show for our final Db2 LUW show of the season. Here comes the music. Let me thank you once again, and we'll see you all next time on the Db2 Night Show. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.